Hello everyone and my grant subscribers. You're welcome to Sure Updates Grant channel where we give you the latest and updated version of the UAAG disbursement funding. If you're new on my channel, please consider subscribing by clicking the notification bell so that whenever we publish our new content, you'll be kindly notified. Thank you so much for subscribing and God bless.
Today's session, we will look critically on the reason for the prolonged delay in disbursement, even when date was set on May for disbursement to officially take place. And secondly, we will consider when officially is the new date for disbursement to commence in the grant ecosystem. Thank you for having me on Home Julivia TV today. I remain the CEO of Home Julivia TV. Let's look critically on the reason for the delay in disbursement, even when disbursement was scheduled to take place before the end of May, as we announced here on this channel. First of all, we have always been emphasizing that disbursement processes has long commenced. The difference right now is in the alert actually hitting the account of NGO CEOs and the beneficiary. But as we have always stated, the processes of disbursement has always been ongoing. And in the ending of May, a certain milestone, a very important milestone, was attained, even when the alert did not hit the bank account. You might have heard people saying in the grant ecosystem that certain grant stakeholders, like the UAAG country director, met with the president in the villa. It wasn't actually the country director of the UAAG alone that met with the president, and the most importantly is for us to understand the reason for that meeting in the villa between other grant handlers alongside the country director of UAAG. Before now, there has been this supremacy battle on which of the grant handlers should disburse the fund to the NGOs to disburse to their beneficiaries. And in this aspect, there has been a series of petitions. A certain grant handler feels he should be in charge of disbursing the fund to every other grant handler to disburse to the NGOs. So in the light of all this, there has been petition even in the month of May on why the disbursement should be overhauled or suspended until their NGO or foundation is the one profiled to disburse the fund to every other grant handler. And this is the very reason why the president decided to engage with the grant handler, because as a fact, when people say the president of Nigeria doesn't want the fund to be disbursed, it's far from that. The president is not delaying disbursement. It is the fight and fisticuff amongst the grant handler that is actually delaying disbursement. The presidency, time and again, only intervene in the conflict, calling for peace for disbursement to commence. In the last week of May 2025, the presidency invited all the grant handlers to settle this cause that has been lingering among themselves. So the country director of the UAAG was there, Theobarth Global Foundation, the EPIC Supreme, St. Rita, AGPGN representative, other grant handlers were there, all to harmonize which of the Apex NGO is going to be used for disbursement of the fund to the NGOs. And the good news in that meeting is that one of the grant handlers will eventually pick to disburse the fund to every other grant handler to disburse to the NGOs. So take note, there's a process that is already activated for disbursement to commence. This particular Apex NGO is receiving the fund and then will dispense to other grant handlers. So the good news in that aspect is that virtually all grant handlers, grant promoters that has profiled themselves for this disbursement, that has existed in the grant ecosystem all this while, has been accepted or approved by the government to partake in the disbursement. Aware that if approval is not given for most of these grant handlers to receive the fund, the government is already aware that some beneficiaries will go home with nothing after having waited in the grant ecosystem for almost a decade. So in the light of this, the presidency allowed every grant handler, he directed that the fund should be given in some certain percentages to almost all the grant handlers to disburse. From the list that is seen circulating at the moment, the AGPGN is top there in the list, followed by UAAG, Theobarth Global Foundation, Supreme, St. Rita, Epic. Other grant handlers are equally included in the list, which is not popular in the grant ecosystem. And apart from this, it is equally important to acknowledge that what is going to be disbursed by these grant handlers aren't the same. Some of the grant handlers are only approved to disburse cash to the beneficiaries as grant, while some of them will disburse palliative to their own audience, and the other extraction of grant handler will partake in the project to their own audience of beneficiaries. So the AGPGN, being top in the list, will disburse palliative to their own audience. Entitlement for their own beneficiaries has already been stated in our previous video. Reference back to it for more clarity. The UAAG will be disbursing grants to their audience according to the UAAG country director, while the likes of Supreme, Hope Project will be partaking in projects. They will utilize the fund given to them to embark on execution of projects in communities, while some certain portion of it will be allocated to their beneficiaries as empowerment. So there is cash disbursement and there is an empowerment for artisans and entrepreneurs under that scheme. The likes of Theobarth Global Foundation is approved to disburse funds to their own audience of NGOs and beneficiaries. So everyone technically has been included. There is an all-inclusive arrangement ongoing. Every beneficiaries that have ever subscribed for grants, irrespective of the organizations that they subscribe with, will partake in this disbursement. Those other less popular grant handlers have been merged with some other bigger organizations to disburse funds to those audience of beneficiaries instead of them losing out in the process. Therefore, what we consider as a delay of disbursement not taking place in May was not actually a delay, but a very important milestone that is to the benefits of all beneficiaries. A way that if disbursement was to take place in that May, so many NGOs will not have received alerts. So many beneficiaries will never have received alerts. So that harmonization that took place at the villa in the month of May between the federal government and the grant handlers, all of them has eventually led to inclusion of almost all the NGOs and beneficiaries who has ever applied for grants in the grant ecosystem. Again, the first week of June was a specific week where the grant handlers were invited to EFCC and the CBN, not CBN alone as is circulated. They were first invited for security profiling. Yes, as you have been approved to disburse the fund, go to EFCC and submit your credentials. Hence, when you receive the money, you will not disappear into thin air or run away from Nigeria to overseas with people's money. Therefore, the need for the grant handler to submit their BVN, their NIN, their international passport, and other sensitive documents that will enable them to be tracked either by the EFCC or Interpol, especially in areas of trying to misappropriate the fund, trying to truncate what is meant for the NGOs and beneficiaries. Their account is profiled for monitoring by the EFCC. It is after that security profiling that they now proceed to the CBN to receive code to access the fund. These are all processes that take days. Sometimes the activities is not completed in 1, 2, or 3 days. There are several grant handlers that are involved, and any activity that have to do with documentation are always done with all degree of sensitivity and diligence. So you don't just walk in and then get cleared, you walk away. There are some confirmations that have to be done by the EFCC and other crime-fighting institutions to ensure these documents tendered are not forged but correct. So those screenings and those confirmations actually marked another bout of delay that was seen or experienced in the grant ecosystem. It's after the completion of that stage that the grant handler were approved to approach the CBN to receive the code that is required to access the fund for disbursement to the NGOs. And these are part of the activities that created another sequence of delay in the first and second week of June, which we are. But the good news is the code has been given to all the approved grant handler to disburse the fund. And immediately after a code was issued to the grant handler to disburse the fund, then was the MOU, a pact between the federal government, the financially regulatory bodies, the NFIU, the CBN, the grant handler. The reason for this is to ensure they will obey the strict guidelines that are being provided for the grant handler to follow astutely to ensure the process does not upset the economy. So the practice to ensure the grant handler live up to these conditions or agreement throughout the course of disbursement. It's equally important to note that before disbursement will take place, MOU and disbursement template will be released to the grant ecosystem. I'm not sure if the template will be made public, but we on this channel will make the template available to all of you to access and to know exactly how much your organization is receiving and how much you are entitled to as a beneficiary. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, subscribe immediately and turn on the notification bell. Hence, when we bring on this template and the MOU, you will be immediately notified. And these are all strong milestones attained so far that should call for celebration, not worry, not frustration, not depression, as seen across the tent in the grant ecosystem. And this is the much reason why we keep emphasizing that all grant subscribers should sustain a highly excitatory and positive state of consciousness. Hence, they will stay alive to receive what God has already made possible for the masses. This is a blessing that so many generations will not be lucky to have. So you need to stay alive to experience this process eventually rolling out to an end. Yes, the house rent is there, the school fee is there, feeding is difficult, you are sick, you need money to undergo operations. God will sustain you till the money hits your bank account to achieve these wild expectations. This is our prayers for everyone, and God has already answered us. You will stay alive and healthy till disbursement alert hit your bank account. Now, the final question to address in this session: when is the official date approved for disbursement to take place? Yes, it's already circulated in the grant ecosystem that disbursement will not reach the NGOs and the beneficiaries in this week. Disbursement is starting officially this week in June 2025. When I mean this week, specifically between the 13th and the 15th of June 2025. Yes, that's the reality. Anyone that tell you disbursement is suspended till next week is simply lacking information. As code has been given to the grant handler, I've heard people agitating for protest or saying government doesn't want the fund to be disbursed. Please note, this grant doesn't belong to the government. It belongs to a non-governmental entity. As such, government cannot stop the disbursement of the grant. Government can only regulate the processes, the entitlements that should go to NGOs or beneficiaries. But the government cannot stop disbursement taking place. So the delay is in the hands of the grant handler, not the government. Approval has been given, if not because of the fine-tuning, the screening, the documentation, and the profiling that has been taking place lately. Disbursement should have long started in May. So this week, the disbursement processes will kickstart and roll towards next week and the entire month of June and July. Take note that the MOU is going to hold information that safeguard your own NGO CEO from disbursing accordingly what is approved by the federal government to you. We will still be here to take feedbacks from beneficiaries, especially those who are having issues with their NGOs not disbursing to them as after they have legitimately subscribed to that NGO. Subscribe to this channel so that you will be able to keep track of this activity and equally present your own unique case, if any, for us to help you to troubleshoot it accordingly. Disbursement is segmented. Not everyone will receive in the same day. But the most important thing is let the process commence. One who is already aware that the disbursement has kickstarted will patiently wait for it to get to his or her turn. So depending on the category you belong to, you may receive this week, or you receive it next week, or before the end of June. But the fact is, disbursement is starting this week. Keep their accounts active for alert to hit. Not when the alert hits your bank account, it reverses back to the Apex account because of some certain restrictions or dormancy. NGO CEOs keep their accounts active. Dormancy of accounts can reverse your alert back to the Apex account and you miss out of disbursement. Same thing goes with the beneficiaries. Ensure you deposit money and you withdraw in your savings or current accounts. Hence, you will not hear disbursement has started and you don't receive alert. Pending alert may be as a result of inactivity of the account or dormancy of the account. Security and safety. Security in the area of fraudsters already monitoring your account, waiting for alert to hit for them to clear everything. So many people have left their ATM pin unguardedly accessed by fraudsters. Some have clicked links on the WhatsApps and Telegram groups and shared their BVN or code OTP to sensitive areas of their account with scammers and fraudsters. This is where there will be a real problem, because as the fund enters, the scammers and the fraudsters or hackers that have been monitoring your account will simply wipe it. God forbid that the fund belonging to the NGO is wiped completely from the NGO's account, either the cooperative or the foundational account. That implies all the beneficiaries under those organizations will not receive alert. This security information is to all NGOs. Approach their account officers and request for a lien to be placed on their account. A lien or a post-no debit should be placed on their account, pending when they will approach the bank and on lien it for disbursement to take place, or to ensure no individuals elsewhere have access to the account. If you are new to our channel or haven't subscribed before, kindly click on the subscription button and activate the notification bell. Sometimes some people don't get our updates because they don't turn on the notification bell. Activate the bell, hence when we publish our next content, you will be immediately notified. Summarily, before we depart today, be rest assured that the reason for the delay is finally over, and starting from this week, disbursement will commence and roll out to other NGOs and beneficiaries throughout the month of June and end officially in July 2025, ensuring there is justice, fairness, and equity throughout the course of disbursement in the days and weeks ahead. And if you have issues related to not receiving funds or being suppressed or denied of your privileges of disbursement,